I want to grow up like you. I'm not going to be scared of anything. David went and done everything with me when he was little. He would go with me to work, and he would get those pudding cup thing. It had graham cracker and stuff in it, and he'd get those from work, and he would sit and eat them as a dessert from KFC. And so he got used to going with me like that, going to work and meeting the people I worked with. So when I would go shooting or target practicing with the pistols, he would want to go with me, and I told him he couldn't go. And he says, well, why not? And he says, I get to go everywhere else with you. And I said, well, because you're not big enough. So he said, when I get bigger, he says, will you teach me how to shoot so I can go with you? And I told him, yeah, when he got bigger, I'd take him with me. I remember it was May the 31st, and I was the manager at Kentucky Fried Chicken. My assistant manager was off that day, and I had to work a double shift, so I worked from opening to close. But I got off really late that night, and my wife had spent the day with her sister, and the kids were with her. I had 2 sons and a daughter. Probably 12:30 when I got done at work, and I stopped by there to pick them up on my way home. And when we got home, the kids had fallen asleep in the car because it was so late. And she got Cammie and took her in and put her to bed, and I carried Daniel in and put him to bed, or put him in his bassinet in our room next to the bed, and went back out to get David. He put his arms around my neck, and he kind of halfway woke up and, just kind of squeezed my neck. And I carried him in and put him in bed. Him and Cammie had a full-size bed in their room, and then he was 3.5 and she was just 15 months old, and they kind of shared a bed, and he was like the big brother. He's always watched over her when she slept. But we got him in and put him to bed, and I got in bed and laid down that night.
911, what is your emergency?
Donald Davidson, 3959 Oaks Road. There's a trailer on fire. There's people in it.
3959 Oaks Road?
59.
How far out is that, sir?
Where are you going? Back to the racetrack and the airport.
Okay.
Please hurry, there's kids in it.
We'll get them out there.
A little after 3 in the morning, was coughing, woke up, and the whole trailer was full of smoke. Couldn't breathe. The fire was so hot and just like it blistered you. And I jumped out of bed, and I screamed, and I ran into the hallway and towards David and Cammie's room. And the flames were just, you couldn't even get to the doorway. But I kept trying to get down the hallway, and we had a gas furnace in the hallway, but just as I was getting up and getting to the hallway, that exploded, and the fire just ripped through my face and burned and knocked me to the floor. And I started crawling. I couldn't see, and the smoke was so black and thick. And I crawled back towards my room, and at some point I reached the bed, and I remember that the smoke was so black that I couldn't find the window, and I fell onto the bed, and I guess I got overcome by the smoke and passed out. When I came to, the flames were at the doorway in my room, and the bed was just a couple of feet or so from the doorway. But in the smoke, I could see the street light out the window through the crack in the curtain. And I reached back and thought I was grabbing Daniel out of his crib, but I was reaching the wrong direction. I had grabbed a pillow off the end of the bed, and I made it to the window, and I just punched my right hand and my right arm through the window, and it just kind of raked the glass out with my arm so I could get through it. I was crawling out the window, and I was kind of hanging down from the window, and I thought I had Daniel in my hand, and I just fell out of the window onto the ground, and it was probably, I don't know, 6-7 feet off the ground. And I remember the neighbors, one of the neighbors, somebody was yelling, help me get him.
He was laying there on the back window hanging out of the trailer, and he dropped to the ground, and myself and the neighbor over here grabbed a hold of him and drug him over here away from the fire.
It had been pretty hot that day, but it was just cold. I guess the grass was wet, and where the fire had burnt my skin, it felt like I was laying in ice. And I remember hearing people talking and hearing people screaming, you know. I was there just a few minutes, and I couldn't see anymore. It's like an old television set. When you turn it off, you just see it kind of fade out, and that's what my eyes done. I couldn't see, and it just faded away. But I could still hear people talking around me. I could see the blood was coming out of my arm before my eyesight went away. But I was laying there in the grass, and I could hear people talking, and I heard a man's voice says, well, let's cover him up because he's already gone. I know I felt like I was screaming or saying something, but apparently they covered me up with a sheet or something. I remember seeing the light, and David was walking towards the light, and he was carrying Daniel, and Cammie was holding his hand. She was walking with him. I was following him. I just started going towards the light. And then I couldn't see the kids anymore. All I could see was the light. They disappeared. And I remember hearing a voice. It said, it's not your time. And when I heard the voice, I woke up in the ambulance, and all the pain and the hurt, everything was just there, it just instantly. And the ambulance driver was screaming at me. He was telling me, stay with me. What's your name? And he's just, screaming and screaming. You got to stay with me. You got to talk to me. Don't close your eyes. Stay with me. And everything just faded out and went black again. I woke up 2 days later in intensive care. I couldn't talk. I had a breathing tube in. And people were all around me, but I couldn't remember who I was. I didn't know anybody who was in the room. but I did. No, I lost my kids. I can't explain that. It was just like this hurt inside of me. I could feel that my kids were gone. I remember I was asleep and I heard people talking in the room, and the doctor had come in and was talking to that I know now as my father, and he told him, he says, while you're making the kids' arrangements, you might as well make his too, because he's not going to make it. I remember my dad saying, well, you don't know my kid very well, because he's going to come through this. A couple of days later, they took the ventilation tube out and I started improving. I cut my right arm all the way to the bone in 15 different places. I've come a long way. I've learned there is something out there for me. I remarried. I have 3 children, and although the pain's with me every day, I wouldn't trade one of them for the other 3 back, because they mean so much to me now.